I was so angry at the baby for making me go through all I did. I refused to carry her, but I was just upset with her because I knew I almost lost my life. And, you know, I blamed my baby for that. Oftentimes you hear that no two pregnancies are alike, and I literally lived through that. I got married in 2009, September 2009, but I was away for studies. So I came back in December 2010 and I took in like that very same day. I didn't know. I think 3 months after, because everything was as normal, 3 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. And I think it was soon after I discovered I was pregnant that the symptoms started kicking in. But it was, to be honest, that pregnancy was pretty easy. Besides the morning sickness, I think that was pretty much it. And then I had hair growth sport, like everywhere, hair was growing everywhere and all that. I don't want to go into details of that, but it was a very easy pregnancy. I really enjoyed, I loved being pregnant, that's one thing for sure. As soon as I found out the sex, I had already named my child, and that was pretty much, it was a nice experience. I used to call my child by the name. Then I went to have my baby in the US. Everything was actually pretty cool. Normally you would hear that between 36 to 40 weeks the baby is due. Sometimes I feel it's because I was very in love with being pregnant. I always used to say, oh, I love you so much, I don't want you to come out. That was what I always used to say to my baby. So I think maybe my baby heard me. When I was going for my scheduled visits, I think at 38th week, the doctor was already getting worried because, you know, the baby hadn't turned and all that, but, you know, we're hopeful. And at 40 weeks, the baby still hadn't come. Now, 40 weeks was a day before my birthday, and I gave birth in Texas, so apparently they had this law, and the doctor was trying to err on the side of caution. So he said to me that I would like for you to have the baby before it's 42 weeks, because if you have the baby at 42 weeks or after 42 weeks and anything happens to the baby, I'm going to have, you know, like, there's going to be litigation, and, you know, he didn't want that. So what I said to him at it was actually 41 weeks. She passed the 40-week mark. And at 41 week, when it was my birthday, I was like, okay, you know what? Let me enjoy my birthday, which was the 28th of September. And then 29th, they booked me to go in for a CS. Prior to that, I really didn't have any, I really couldn't care less. I just wanted a healthy baby, so I didn't care if I was going to have the baby naturally or via CS. But obviously, when I had made my payments, I paid for natural birth. And so I went into the hospital a day after my birthday. My birthday, I had fun, ate lots of cake and, you know, preparing for the day after. So on the 29th, I checked into the hospital, and then they prepped me, and then they induced me. At the time, what they said was that they were going to insert something into my cervix that was just going to ripen it and hasten the process. And it usually takes 6 hours. So we got started with that. 6 hours later, the cervix wasn't ripening, you know, nothing had started. So they inserted another one for another 6 hours. So that was 12 hours. At this time, I didn't pay for epidural because that was extra cost. So, and I was trying to save money. So I was like, I'm an African woman, so I braved that. So I think it was after they had ripened it the second time. At the after the 12-hour mark, they now, was that when they broke my water? I think they broke my water. And then they gave me this injection. A lot of people are afraid of Peptocin. And then I started seeing stars. Like, I was having very severe contractions. I would lift the drip tray and I'll be slamming it on the floor. Unfortunately, my husband wasn't there with me. He went to the US with me, but he had to go back to work and he had plans of coming to join me before birth, but it didn't happen. But my best friend was with me, so she was with me through the entire process. So the inducement, I think that's what they call it, continued, and then we were on day 2 when one of the Indian nurses at the time thought probably to hasten it. After they had broken my water, she put her hands inside and literally flipped the baby to kind of usher her into the birth canal. I don't know the medical terminology for that. And she literally, after she did it, my baby literally ricocheted back to her position. And then I was just in labor, I couldn't take anything. And I remember the nurses would always come in and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is your pain? And I would say, it's a 7 or it's an 8. They were like, pain-wise, it's good, but you are not dilating. With that pregnancy, I think I did not dilate beyond 2 centimeters. So that was 29th and 30th. So on the 1st of October, this was like 2 days, I was in labor, no pain meds and everything. There was the guidance, she's like a guidance and counselor basically. So she was on duty the day I came in, when they checked me in. So when she came in and then she went through my chart and she saw that I was still there, she called me aside or she requested to speak with me, and then she asked if there was a particular reason why Africans do not like to give birth via CS. And then I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. So she said, okay, let me put it to you simply. Your cervix you didn't dilate beyond 2 centimeters, and then after that, your cervix started thickening. So from all medical means, except there's a miracle, you're not going to give birth naturally. So to see, I would just advise you to save yourself the stress and the pain, and then request for a CS. And then I said to her that, well, if the doctors had given me that option, why not? I would have taken it because, this pain is not worth it. So I requested to see the doctor, and then I put a call through to the doctor at 9 a.m. on October 1st, and then he scheduled me for the operation for 10. At that point, I was like, okay, I'm ready for the epidural now. And the doctor started laughing. It was like, after going 2 days without it, don't worry. So pretty much the doctor came in at 10 a.m. I was given, this time it wasn't epidural, it was just spinal anesthesia, and then my baby came out at 10:30. And I remember when she came out, the first thing he screamed was like, even if this girl was there for 3 more days, she had no plans of coming out. She was too comfortable. So, the Nigerian part of me, I was like, okay, maybe it was my confession. But yes, that was it with my first pregnancy. After I gave birth, the healing process was really bad because my body had taken a beating. And I reacted to the epidural, I reacted to literally almost all the pain meds. The pain meds they gave me were not working for the pain. So sometimes they would give me, and then 4 hours later I'll ask for another one, and then the lady would be like, that one's supposed to take you for 12 hours, And I remember when eventually, after a couple of days, like 2 days, I went back home. The pain meds they gave me, I literally finished it before the time frame because I was in a lot of pain, reaction. But then the doctor said I probably have hyper. When you take medication, when they give you the contraindications and they say you react to, there are 26 reactions. At that point, I could cancel like 15 reactions. So I had to go through that, then giving birth without my husband, taking care of the baby, and with CS, bathing her and all that, but it was all worth it. I think even after that pregnancy, after that experience, you know, I didn't really have any issues after giving birth. The only thing was the doctors at the time said to me that I would have to wait some time before I gave birth again because my body needed healing, so I wasn't in a hurry in any way. The only issues I had was like when I came back, I think for me it's how Nigerians can be. So a friend of mine had come to visit me after I had the baby. I've always had issues with how stereotypical, or how, stereotypical is not the word, but Nigerians see you first and they say, oh, you gave birth, boy or girl. When you say boy, they'll say, hey, strong man. When you say girl, they'll say, or, you know, sometimes, the recent one I heard now, when you say, I had twins, they'll say, was it natural or IVF? But the truth is that the journey of motherhood it's not something you trivialize. So back to my friend, a friend of mine came to visit me, and then she was like, oh, you know, I had a baby girl, her name is Zoe, and she was like, such a beautiful baby girl. You know, they will ask the normal thing, weight, and then the first thing that got to me was, how did you give birth to her? And I said, CS. And she was like, ha, I knew it. You've always been lazy. I knew you couldn't pull it off. And that hurt me to my core, because for some women, it's easy for them. You go in and you come out. But I was in labor for 3 days. I did not take anesthesia. Trust me, I'm stronger than people that went and they popped it. Everybody has their own affinity for pain, you know. And so that really rubbed me the wrong way. And that was when I realized that giving a child via CS can be a thing in this climb. But the truth is, as far as you have a healthy child, that's what's most important. So I'm going to fast forward to my second baby. With that one, with my second baby, because the doctor had advised us that we should wait, we actually didn't plan on having another baby till after 4 years. So we wanted a 5-year gap. And so we started trying after 4 years. And unfortunately, then I had 2 miscarriages. For me, it was strange because, you know, with the first one, I didn't even plan it. So with my first pregnancy, I didn't try, like I said earlier, it just happened. So with this one, when I was trying, you know, the calculations, of course, I was a few years older as well. So I had, with the first miscarriage, I didn't even know I had a miscarriage. I just realized that I had missed my period like for 2 months. I think I was in and out of a job at the time. I was pretty busy, so I didn't even take note. But the funny thing was that the moment I realized I was pregnant and I told my husband, guy, it's like I'm pregnant too, because, you know, I missed my period. It wasn't when we had planned, but, you know, we were happy all the same. The very next day, I saw what I thought was my period. But then the period continued for 2 weeks. So obviously it wasn't my period. I had lost the baby. So I went to see a doctor, and then of course they did a scan and confirmed that there was no baby there. So that didn't really hit me because I didn't even know I was pregnant. And then I think after that happened, we had the conversation. I said, okay, perhaps we should start trying. So we tried. For now, I can't really remember the number of months we tried. And then we were pregnant again, you know, went through the motions, we were happy, went to do the scan. And then I think it was at the 9th week. This one hurt really bad because I was stuck in Lagos traffic for 3.5 hours. I was going to work that day and there were trailers all over. So I was in Lagos traffic for like 3.5 hours. I got to work, I was livid. So I said to them, you know what, I'm just gonna sign in and go back home. Signed in, entered the room, because the way the traffic was, I was like, I don't know what it's gonna be like going back. So I better, you know, get back on the road. got on the road, and I was in a traffic for another 3 hours. So when I got home, I just noticed my legs were shaking. So as soon as I got to the house, I was already spotting. I called my husband, he rushed from work, and then we got to the hospital. As soon as I got to the hospital, they admitted me. And that was another experience I didn't like, in the sense that I was having a threatened miscarriage. And I had expected in the hospital for them to have some sort of empathy. They put me in the ward, the birthing ward. So while I was there in my pain, losing a baby, people were going in and out of the birthing ward, bringing their babies, and they were saying congratulations, congratulations. And eventually I was bleeding, and they were like, well, you just need bed rest, you need to rest. The baby might still be there for all you know. But after a couple of days, we did a scan and the baby had gone. And so while other people were told congratulations, I was told sorry. And that literally broke me. My husband too. And I had had some health challenges prior to that. I had a mild heart failure as a result to chemical exposure in my former place of work. So because of some of the medication I had been on, I was on steroids and all sorts of medication. One of the doctors had said to me then that my fertility might be compromised. So I didn't even expect, to give birth again. So when I had that miscarriage, the solace I had was that at least they said I couldn't have a baby. So that was that. So I was discharged from the birthing ward, and I went back home. So we took a few months, and really we weren't willing to try because I did not anticipate the amount of pain, and I blamed myself throughout. I was like, I shouldn't have, because I drove. So maybe I shouldn't have been driving, So many things were going through my head at that point. And the thing is, my daughter is very assertive. So the moment I started having symptoms, I was throwing up. With that pregnancy, the symptoms came almost immediately. So when I was throwing up, because she had been on my case and saying, Mommy, I need a sibling, I need a sibling. She was happy, and she would tell her dad, don't disturb Mommy, Mommy is pregnant. So, and then we actually said, yes, we're pregnant, but it's a secret. So, after I lost that baby, it was difficult telling her, oh, that baby has gone. I was really unhappy, and I wasn't willing to try again. So we just took things easy. 6 months after, I found out I was pregnant again. But this time I was not excited. I just didn't want to go through what I had been through the other time, so I just took it as it came. But after the 3 months mark, when I started my antenatal, I started getting excited. With that pregnancy as well, besides the severe, I used to have severe morning sickness. I would even throw up the whole day. For that pregnancy, my husband and my daughter ate out throughout that period. I couldn't cook anything. Even if you boiled water, it would get to me. So they had to eat out most of the time. And even if they had to eat, they would eat, clean themselves up, and then come back inside. So with that pregnancy, it wasn't difficult. But with that one, I wasn't like my first pregnancy, where I was so happy to be pregnant. This time around, I was tired all the time. Then I would have muscle pull. So I had signed up to birthing websites, like Birth Center or something. So that kind of it prepares you for what you're to expect. So I always anticipated, oh, I'm on my, 20th week. This is what's supposed to come. But with that one, there were so many things besides throwing up. I threw up throughout almost till the 7th month. Same with my first. And then with this one, I would have severe muscle pull where I can't walk. and then I wouldn't go to work for like 2-3 days because and I don't know if it was the baby's position. So that pregnancy was definitely different from my first pregnancy. I think that was the most thing that got to me. The muscle pull. I couldn't drive. Sometimes I would be hopping on one leg, you know, for the whole day, and then after some time I would be relieved. So I read it up and I found out that it happens in some pregnancies. So that was different for me. And then we went through all the months. Thankfully, baby was fine. Everything was in good position. And when my baby was due on the 27th of April. And no, actually on the 28th of April. And then on the 27th, so I think I had my show. Now, with my first pregnancy, I didn't have all those things, so I didn't know what it was. But I went to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and then I had the whole day I'd been having contractions, but I thought, oh, perhaps it's Braxton Hicks, which was another thing I didn't have with my first baby. So, or they weren't as severe. So with the contractions and everything, I thought, oh, it's Braxton Hicks. But when I started counting it and I saw how close it was, I was like, okay, so this is the real thing. So at about maybe 12 midnight, I saw my show, and then I called my husband. I was like, okay, it's time to go to the hospital. We got to the hospital, and then everything was going perfectly. I was dilating. I think at the point I was 6 centimeters or something. And for me, it was interesting because with my first one, I didn't go that far. So I was like, okay. And then by morning, the doctor came in because the plan was that, okay, I got to the hospital at 2 a.m. Let's go through this. By morning, the baby should be good. So, you know, being in the hospital, it was different from my first experience. With this experience, I hadn't anticipated having my baby here, but I had issues with the embassy. They were in my passport for over 4 months, but I had told them my EDD was 28th of April, and I think I must have received my passport about 15th or 14th of April, after I had called the embassy or the consular office severally and all that. So what happened in this case was I didn't have anything for my baby's birth because I had, you know, I just thought everything was sorted out. So definitely this was a totally different, you know, experience. Also, I didn't even shop for my baby. I had to get people to shop for her because that was when I was having severe muscle pull, so I couldn't walk. So I just got people. To be honest, I was still hopeful that I was going to travel. So last minute, 2 weeks to the birth, you know, in the hospital, they'll give you a list of things you should get. I just gave them a list of things to get me the basics. So fast forward to, you know, being in the hospital. The hospital, thankfully, they knew what they were doing. In the morning, when the doctor came in, he said I was dilating, but my baby's, the cord was wrapped around my baby's neck. And because I had had a prior cesarean section, he didn't want a situation where I would rupture it, you know, trying to force anything. So he asked me if I was okay with the CS, and I said yes, please, because to be honest, I didn't want to go through what I went through the first time. So I was like, please, doctor, if you want to do the CS as soon as possible. And I think at 11 o'clock on the 27th, I went into the theater. The only thing I had said to them was that the first time I reacted to the epidural, so that's the only thing I see, and you know, that's the only issue, complication I think might arise. So went into the theater. I was in the theater for maybe a little over an hour. My baby came out and I was wheeled into the, I was actually still in the recovery room. They hadn't taken me to my room. Because my husband had been in and out of the hospital, as soon as I gave birth and they were like, oh, just allow her rest, he rushed to the hospital to rest, or to resume, sorry. And then at that point, I didn't even know what happened, because shortly after I had the operation, my tummy started swelling again. And I was in a lot of pain. My tummy had doubled its size from when I had given birth. I think this was the second day. I'm sorry if I'm mixing things up, because my husband had gone to work early that morning, and then my tummy had doubled. I remember the doctor coming into to my room to say, "Madam, did you eat anything? Confess now so that we'll know how we'll handle it." And I'm like, "Excuse me, sir, this is not my first yes. Did you give me food to eat or did you drink something?" Say, "Because I can't understand this." So also because I had the previous heart failure, some of the complications that had come with it was panic attacks. So I started having panic attacks. I was like, what is going on? What is going on? And then at that point, I flatlined. And I know they brought me back. I was hearing in the background, the doctors were saying, you know, they were asking themselves questions. So the doctor was there, the anesthesiologist, and then I think the other doctor that was with him, and they were asking, so did we do this? Do you remember if I did this? And then in my subconscious, I was saying to myself, wait, what's going on here? Why are they asking all these questions? And then they were talking about taking me back to the theater. At that point, they had called my husband in the office to start coming back. I remember my husband saying that as he was driving, he didn't even know what to expect, because his boss just said, pack your things and start going home. So he was rushing down and all that. Eventually, I later found out the situation was called a paralytic ileus. Paralytic ileus is a situation where your intestines don't move after surgery. And because of that, it gathers air and then fluids, and then it starts swelling. So in my case, you know, when that happened, I don't know, I think they called in, that's the good thing about the hospital I gave birth in, they called in other consultants. So that also triggered my anxiety, because every day I would see different doctors, you know, it was like a teaching hospital. They were looking and then they would go. And then because the tummy became very engorged, it was much bigger in diameter than when I was even pregnant. They had to put tubes through my nose to my tummy. The first bag they got was greenish fluid. It was 2 liters. After that, you know, they were changing the bags, you know, intermittently. I can't remember how many bags, because the truth was that I was in and out of it. I remember sometimes I would wake up and I'll tell my husband, what's going on? Is there a baby? Is there a baby? And then before he says, yes, there's a baby, pee, 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 I would go off again. So at the point they told him, calm her down. As soon as she wakes up, just tell her, there's a baby, this is the baby, you know, and all that. At that point, I hadn't seen my baby. So I was in the hospital, let's say, I was in and out of coma for about 5 days. And I think it was on the 5th or 6th day I eventually came to. And that was the first time I carried my baby. That was the first time I breastfed her. There was a lot of pain. It was a struggle, because I saw a lot of things, but you know, some people don't believe in all that. It was a journey between life and death. I saw myself going to places and it was a struggle, but thankfully I made it out. Okay, so there was one situation where I saw myself in a truck. These trucks that carry rubbish. So I was being wheeled in a truck and I was screaming. I was like, I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be here. And I have an uncle who's a pastor. In the dream or whatever it was, he was marching around the truck and trying to block the truck. And then I kind of went back to sleep. And then the second one, which was the last one that kind of, after that I knew it was over, I had told my husband to put tapes, Christian tapes, to be playing in the background 24 hours regardless of anything. So I saw my pastor in my dream. Actually, I saw Pastor Chris in my dream. He used to be my pastor. And in the dream, he wore a white shirt. And it was like we were in a crusade ground and I was on a stretcher. So he said to me, he said to the people carrying me at the time, bring her to me. So there was quiet, but I know there were lights everywhere. It was so bright. It was like we were in a stadium. And then they dropped me on this podium. And then he started ministering to me. So he started from my legs. It felt at that time like it was an hour, but he took his time from my legs to my knee to my stomach, everywhere. And then he said, she's free, let her go. And then there was pandemonium, there was screaming, just like you would see in a crusade. And then at that point, I just came to. So when I opened my eyes, the first thing my husband said, there's a baby. What do you think? It's a girl. What do you think of the name Audrey? And I was like, what's the meaning of Audrey? He said, strength. I said, that's a good name. And that was pretty much it. So I was in the hospital till, that was the 5th day. I was in the hospital for 4 more days, and I was discharged after the 9th day. And then I had a bout of postpartum depression. I was so angry at the baby for making me go through all I did. I refused to carry her. I was just sorry. I remember people would come to the house to visit, and I would refuse to carry the baby, you know. They would be in the living room. I'll just dump the baby with my husband. I'll be like, give them the baby. But I was just upset with her because I knew I almost lost my life. And, you know, I blamed my baby for that. But thankfully, I think after a month, we were actually considering going to see a doctor for it, but I didn't need any medication. So my baby is 3 years now. She's a bundle of trouble, and she's my best friend. It's a fantastic journey, but like I always say to people when they say, oh, madam, when is the next one? Or, you know, they'll be like, come and give us our boy. I'll be like, the 2 kids I have are all the boys that you will need, because my 2 daughters have the energy of 4 boys. That's what everybody says. And that's literally all the satisfaction I need. So actually, I didn't want to share this story. Not that I didn't want to share it. I have never been in front of the camera, so I was a bit, I didn't know what to expect, and I was scared. But then the day I got the call, my cousin had died from the same paralytic ileus. And I remember as soon as they called my aunt and said, this is what happened to her, my aunt said, but why didn't you reach out to me? That was exactly what happened to Francisca. And this was what we did. But unfortunately, the hospital she was in did not handle it well. They actually, because she gave birth normally. Now, it's a condition that happens most of the time for people who give birth via CS. But she gave birth normally, so they didn't expect that to happen. And when it happened, I don't know the hospital they went to, they didn't pick it up. So they gave her food to eat, knowing that her intestines were not moving. Her tummy kept swelling. They kept removing, they put the same tubes through her nose, they kept removing the water, but almost immediately the tummy came. They started pressing her stomach with hot water. And then day 3, when the pain was too much, that was when they decided to take her to a diagnostic center to run tests. She was at the diagnostic center for 5 hours. Their machine was bad, and they eventually sent her back home in the ambulance saying, we'll pick you up tomorrow. Unfortunately, tomorrow didn't come. So because of that, I was like, even my own family, probably, they knew I had given birth, they knew I had a troubled pregnancy or a birth story, but they didn't know the details. So I felt it would be important, or it would be nice to share my story. Thank you.